I'm Dave. I'm one of the technical directors at Media Molecule, and I'm helping to make Tearaway. The reception to Tearaway has been amazingly cool. In some ways, it's been a bit of a repeat of LBP, in terms of us being kind of, I think, surprised at how well some of the ideas we've been talking about have connected with people out there. Really, until the point when you announce it, you have no idea how it's going to go across. You're making something that's quite personal, and it's stuff that we like, but whether anybody else understands or is excited by it is sort of rolling the dice a bit, but it seems like it's working. So I think this idea of the intersection between the two worlds is one of the core themes of Tearaway. It's something that we're definitely still exploring, so to be completely honest, there's ways in which that works that we haven't worked out yet. We're sort of still trying lots of different ideas out and seeing what's actually the most fun. But yeah, the idea of your Vita being a sort of a portal that connects the two worlds together is kind of quite central to how a lot of the game feels. So the way of getting your kind of powers sort of into the game world and drawing things out of the game world back into the real world. I really like the idea of it becoming almost confusing, where things are kind of going between those two worlds so much that it all becomes a bit messy, and I think there's something kind of magical in that. So we were kind of finishing Little Big Planet 2, and we had the chance for a kind of a smaller team within Media Molecule to start some very new IP. And also some people in the company who hadn't had such sort of senior roles to kind of have a lot more creative input than perhaps they had on Little Big Planet. But certainly the new hardware was like a big inspiration as well. As with Little Big Planet, there were lots of design decisions that came from the fact that it was tailored towards this very single platform. Really, with Tearaway, I think we had a similar philosophy, because from day one it was designed to be just for the Vita. This idea of the world in your hands, that it's not a world that you're seeing through a TV on the other side of the room. It's something that's you're holding the world in your hands. Really, we could kind of riff on that theme, instead of using the kind of the tilting and the back touch and ways of feeling that you're kind of viscerally connecting with that world. Because we were involved with the Vita from such an early stage, we were kind of able to have input into the hardware design and just have fun and see what was possible with it. So it's sort of like getting exciting new toys and discovering what new sorts of games are possible, or new interactions. So yeah, I think Tearaway is very much lives on the Vita. I couldn't imagine it anywhere else. Yeah, so I think it's important to bear in mind. I think something that perhaps doesn't come across in what we've shown so far is that most of the time, or I suppose the kind of the core thing that connects all the different experiences that you're having, is that you're always controlling iota. Um, Using the kind of some fairly traditional controls in a way. There's always this sort of small, fragile character that you're guiding through the world. So when we're kind of playing with these tricks, like the kind of using the video feed and the gravity changing and the back touch, bringing your fingers into the world, these are in addition to that. And I think this is really what stops us falling into the awkward trap of it feeling like disconnected experiences, because suddenly you want it to feel like this is a heroic adventure. It's this long, like in Lord of the Rings or something, where you're on this long epic quest, and it's not sort of broken up into these very separate experiences. It's always, you have that connection with iota, but then we sort of, at certain moments where it makes sense, we sort of bring in your godlike powers, and that is additive rather than breaking up the experience. It's the scariest. Yeah, it's quite scary in that I think we're trying to avoid falling into the possible mistake of second guessing ourselves, because obviously when people look at um, any new game we make, but obviously Tearaway, they're comparing it to Little Big Planet. So does it have a level editor in there? Where's Sackboy? Comparing Iota to Sackboy, well, we're trying not to do that ourselves, because it's a different game, and I think a lot of similar energies kind of go into it. We're still interested in creativity and creative gaming, whatever that means. We're still having fun exploring that. We like a certain type of charming craft look, I think. But also there's types of games we want to make and types of experiences that we haven't explored yet. I think we're trying to just focus on making the best game we can and not really think about Little Big Planet. There is a certain look I think that we're discovering that we have as a company. I guess because we just made Little Big Planet before, we weren't quite sure, what the range is. Certainly, there's this kind of craft look that's come through again in Tearaway. But I think it's interesting that it feels actually very different, at least to us. That there's different rules to the world. A world made of paper is very different to a world made of craft materials. And I think early on we were very much taking our knowledge of Little Big Planet and trying to apply that to the paper world and just remake all the existing things that we could make out of wood and sponge and make them out of paper. But then after a while we realised that doesn't look like paper. Paper doesn't move that way. You wouldn't build that stuff thing out of paper. But paper is exciting because of the whole way it transforms and unfolds, and anything can change into anything else when it's made of paper. But certainly, there is something charming and common and sort of accessible. I don't think it's I don't know. It's nice. I think it's the kind of thing we just like. No, because I mean, to be honest, the whole Little Big Planet had been in a continual state of gradually expanding to encompass other people. Um, even at the kind of the very core of it, the whole idea was that we have this community of creators out there who make far more stuff and better stuff than we ourselves can make. And the community sort of take on the game design at a certain point. So the idea of having other companies kind of gradually work with us and sort of it's been this kind of very natural and sort of fluid process. I think it's most difficult when you see people doing things better than we could do ourselves. So you know um, that's kind of cool. That makes it easier to feel that Little Big Planet is bigger than Media Molecule. The thing that makes me sleep best at night is knowing that there's all these people from the community who um, cut their teeth on making Little Big Planet levels and are now professional game designers, and they're now working on the franchise. There's now like 20 people or something from the community who are actively making, building the future of Little Big Planet, and they're saying where it's going to go. Obviously, they're the best people to do that. You know, um, so yeah, it's in safe hands. So we're still very much exploring to see how big a part customization is of the game. There's obviously one aspect that's very much about you customizing your character. And we want that to be sort of very creatively empowering and let you dictate sort of how IOTA looks. And I think sort of beyond this, say, Sackboy customizations, now I'm making the horrible mistake of comparing us to Little Big Planet. I think the IOTA customization is very different to Sackboy, whereas with Sackboy you might sort of get like, the different parts of a sailor outfit. Um, in a world made of paper, it's there's sort of much simpler shapes that you can do a lot more with. So we're kind of exploring what that means, and in terms of how you might collect these things that you use to customize yourself, there's probably a different approach that we'll take than we did with Little Big Planet. There'll be no multiplayer elements in the kind of traditional sense. Um, so you wouldn't ever see another player in the world with their character. But we definitely feel that from our experience at Little Big Planet and with this idea of creative gaming, there's a way of connecting people that we really want to explore. So a way that the things that you're doing can affect other people, perhaps not at that same moment, but sort of even people outside of the game, people that don't even know what the game is. These are the kind of multiplayer things that are perhaps more relevant to a lot of players out there. And that's certainly something that we're really exploring. And it's probably going to form some sort of important social aspect of the game that we're sort of, excited to kind of discover what that can be. Without spoiling it, no. And also because there's lots of it that we haven't worked out yet. Um, but I think the main thing to kind of reiterate is that is this kind of this sort of long, sort of almost sort of like sacred quest and that Iota, really wants to get this job done and is kind of scared. That Iota starts off very unsure of sort of who you, the player, are, and being a bit scared of the way that you affect them. So this notion of sort of over the journey, learning to trust you and work with you is an important theme that will sort of punctuate the plot. But I can't say more than that.